I'm thinking they want it on. Good morning. I will call the Wednesday, December 4th, 2024 Environment and Land Use Committee meeting to order. Roll call committee members. We'll start with Kevin.
Here.
Tony Munson here.
Randy Severson.
Kellen Nelson. Susan, you go.
Susan Fisher, Corporation Counsel.
Stacy Klein, board member.
Haley Passo, DLM.
Art Carlson, DLM.
Verge Gamroth, Department of Land Management.
Becky Gluen, County Administrator.
Thank you. I certify that open meeting law requirements have been
Figured that out
met with
finally.
proper posting. We have a 16-item agenda. I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the agenda.
Motion by Munson, second by Severson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Item 5 is adoption of our minutes from our October 2nd regular meeting. Any corrections or additions? Actually, it'd be the November 6th meeting, wouldn't
Oh, it's, yeah.
it? The agenda says no, October. I don't catch much. All right, so November 6th, any corrections or additions to that? Hearing none.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion by Monson. Second by Klein. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this point, I will call to the public hearing for a land use change rezone from residential R8 to residential 20 R20 from Curtis and Charlotte Beck. Randy, would you read the call, please?
There will be a public hearing before the Trumbull County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024 at 8:30 a.m. in the county boardroom of the courthouse, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose is a land use change or rezone from residential 8 to residential 20 on approximately 11.72 acres more or less for a future land division. The location is part of the southwest of the northeast of Section 29, Town 21 North, Range 7 West, Town of Preston. Upon request, a map of the property may be obtained from the Department of Land Management. Hearing is requested by Curtis D. Beck and Charlotte M. Beck, landowner petitioner. Trumbull County invites you to join this meeting as follows. To provide public comment on these hearings, please call 715-538-1894. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Verge Gamroth with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916 or email at verge.gamroth@county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comments to the Department of Land Management, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, or email once again to Verge. All emails and written comments must be received by December 3rd, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author and the request that the letter be read at a particular meeting date. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Verge Gamroth of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916.
Thank you, Randy. I'm missing my cheat sheet, but is there anyone here who wishes to offer public comment? Verge, huh? Would you please, yeah.
I don't see Curtis or Charlotte here, or anyone to represent them. The rezone, like the notice said, is 11.72 acres from R8 to R20 to be able to create another lot to sell to their granddaughter. We do have a letter of support from the town of Preston. The comp plan has the land staying in EA2. when Charlotte was in, we did discuss a number of different options, like they could have built across the road, perhaps. They already sold that one lot to Tracy Beck in the right-hand corner of their property. So due to the fact that they have the small acreage and they want to create another lot for their granddaughter to build, we'd have to go to R20 zoning. And I was sure to tell the Becks that R20 zoning does not allow for any animals except for maybe a dog or a cat. So it's not like they can have cattle or horses there or anything. And the rezone has been filed with the county clerk. It's been filed with the town clerk and District 8 County Board Supervisor Dick Miller. As a courtesy, adjoining landowners were notified, and I did not receive any correspondence from any of the adjoining landowners. The hearing was published in the Trumbull County Times November 13th and the 20th, and like I said, I didn't receive any correspondence from anyone in the public. And if approved, the rezone would go to full county board for final approval on December 16th.
Okay, thank you, Verge. Is there anyone here who wishes to offer public comment on this rezone? Seems like somebody wants to speak. Is anyone here wishes to offer any public comment? Do we have a letter from the town, I believe?
I have a letter dated October 14th from the town of Preston. The town board of the town of Preston received a request from Curtis and Charlotte Beck to rezone their property at N29504 Wall Lane, Blair, Wisconsin, from residential 8 to residential 20. The town of Preston Board of Supervisors at their October 14th, 2024 board meeting passed a motion in favor of this request. The vote was 3-0 in favor of this motion. Sincerely, Kathy Nelson, clerk.
All right, thank you, Verge. Once again, is anyone here who wishes to offer any public comment? This is your last chance. Hearing none, I will close the public comment period and entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Move to approve by Klein. Second by Whalen. Any discussion or questions? I mean, petitioners are not here, so. Comments, questions from the committee?
Question for Verge, because you had mentioned, you made it clear to them, no animals besides, like the standard pet, I guess. Is there concerns that they were looking for that, or?
No, but I just want it on the record that they were told that.
Okay.
So that they don't come, you know how it is, they build a house there and then, oh gee, somebody wants a horse.
Right.
Well, you were told if you
can't do
rezone
it.
it to that, you can't have a horse. So I just want it on the record that I did discuss that issue with them.
Okay.
Is there anything else with R20 designation that would be a stress other than the animals?
Not that I.
That's the only restriction as far as not allowing it, period, I guess. In R8, we
Okay.
could have restricted them to a number of whatever they wanted to, but that case, R20, it's just prohibited, and that's probably the only thing different than any other development, I guess.
So they could sell off though 4 more lots, though, correct, or no?
I do have that. Yeah, they can have,
So it could be sold multiple more times.
yeah, they can have a number of different lots. I had that figured. I think it was like, they could equal up to 6 lots, because it's R20 zoning,
R20
which is
zoning.
subdivision zoning.
Yep.
So they could have up to 6 lots.
Okay.
So, and like I said, the town is aware of it and
Yep.
gave their letter of support.
Okay.
So,
They'd have to have frontage for those lots, and.
correct.
Other
And I guess
issues?
it's R20 or R8's the only, we don't have anything in between, so I guess it's one or the other, I guess. But theoretically, yeah, you're right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the vote. All in favor of approving this rezone signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We'll move that to full county board. Next, item 7 is another public hearing for a land use change rezone from exclusive agriculture to EA2 to rural residential for William and Teresa Toma. Randy, could you please read the call?
Yes. There will be a public hearing before the Trumpealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024 at 8:35 a.m. in the county boardroom of the courthouse, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose for the land use is for a land use change rezone from exclusive Ag 2 to rural residential on approximately 33 acres more or less for a future land division. The location is part of the southeast of Section 32, Town 24 North, Range 8 West, Town of Unity. Upon request, a map of the property may be obtained from the Department of Land Management. The hearing is requested by William J. Toma and Teresa A. Toma, landowner petitioner. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Verge Gamroth with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916 or email at verge.gamroth@county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comments to the Department of Land Management, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, or email once again to Verge. All emails and written comments must be received by December 3rd, 2024 at 4:30 p.m. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author and the request that the letter be read at a particular meeting date. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Verge Gamroth at the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916. Sincerely, Verge Gamroth, zoning technician.
All right. Thank you, Randy. Verge, could you give us a little more info?
Sure. Haley, would you put up the zoning map up there? Yeah. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge Bill Toma, who's here with us this morning. As the notice said, Bill would like to rezone 33 acres from EA2 to rural residential to be able to create a lot to sell 5 acres to his son. The thing about this rezone is the northern part of Bill's land is exclusive Ag 2. And therefore, the zoning wasn't correct for him to be allowed to make another lot. The northern, or the southern part of his property is rural residential. So had it all been rural residential, we wouldn't be here today. But because he wants to put the parcel up in that northeast corner, then we have to rezone that piece for him to be able to do that, because the density for exclusive ag is 1 per 35. And there is no house on the property. We do have a letter of support from the Town of Unity, and the comp plan has the land staying in EA2, but again, we have the support from the town. The rezone has been filed with the county clerk. The town clerk and District 16's County Board Supervisor, Jeannie Nutter, have been notified. As a courtesy, adjoining landowners were notified. I did get a call from Mark Dank, who owns Dank Acres, which is to the west, or, well, north, to the north. And I think there's some to the west also. And he called on November 25th. He wanted to know what was going on, and I told him that Toma was rezoning to give his son 5 acres. Dank asked if there was going to be a housing development there. I told him the most lots that could be made there were 3 in rural residential zoning. He asked why there needed to be a public hearing, and I told him this rezone is a change to the official zoning map, therefore a public hearing is required. The hearing was published in the Trumpealeau County Times on November 13th and November 20th, and again, if this rezone is approved, it would go to full county board for final approval on December 16th.
Thank you, Verge. Is there anyone here who wishes to offer a public comment regarding this parcel? Yep.
As comment for that, the reason for the rezone is that's a town line. So the southern part of the property is in Hale, northern part is in Unity. That's why the road zoning is different.
Sure. Okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to offer a public comment regarding this? Hearing none, would you read the letter from the town, please?
Sure. My letter is dated November 3rd from the Town of Unity. To whom it may concern, the Town of Unity Board discussed and approved for a 5-acre portion of parcel 03000683000, a rezone to rural residential. Well, we're actually rezoning 33 acres, so. You want to confirm that they approved the 33
We
acres being
approved it
rezoned?
To
Okay.
rezone that much, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Since Tony is the town chair.
Yeah. Okay, once again, if anyone would wish to offer any public comment on it, this would be your time. Hearing none, I will call for a motion from the
Make a
committee.
motion to approve for the rezone.
Motion by Munson,
Second.
second by Whalen. Any discussion or questions for Bill since he's here? Seems pretty straightforward, I think.
Yeah, and to build on that property, you'd have to be a goat, I think, because it's not too flat, is it, Bill?
State where it is.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's doing the best thing it can do is growing trees and deer.
Okay, very good. Hearing nothing else, I will call the vote. All in favor of approving this rezone, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and this will move on to December board meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Excuse me. Item number 8 is a public hearing for a conditional use permit for a mobile sighting tower from the Towers LLC. Randy, would you read this
Yes.
public notice?
There will be a public hearing held before the Trumpealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, December 4th, 2024 at 8:40 a.m. in the County Boardroom Courthouse, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose is to consider a conditional use permit for the construction of a new telecommunications tower. The location is the northeast 1/4 of the southwest 1/4, section 33, township 19 north, range 9 west in the town of Trempealeau, Trempealeau County, Wisconsin. Hearing is requested by Thomas Bice, Trempealeau, Wisconsin landowner, the Towers LLC, Boca Raton, Florida operator. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Mark Carlson with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919 or email to Mark Carlson at county.trempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comments to the Department of Land Management, 18600 Hobson Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, or email once again to Mark. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Mark Carlson of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1919. Sincerely, Mark Carlson, Zoning and Sanitary Specialist.
All right, thank you, Randy. Mark, is there anything?
Well, I mean, they turned in an application, they had everything that was required in there to prove why a tower is needed in that area based on their search maps, and, you know, neighbors were notified. There's a few neighbors here that I'm assuming are gonna testify. I do have a letter from the town.
Okay,
I was contacted by 2 of the neighbors personally via phone. I know they're here also, and that's pretty much it. I think, you know, they turned everything in that was required of them, and I guess now it's just a requirement to have the conditional use hearing.
okay. So at this point then, are there people here who have registered to?
Does anyone who wants to speak needs to register? Do we have registrations?
We didn't get a chance to fill it in, we kind of got here right when we started.
Mark, what is our past practice with this as far as for telephone towers?
Past practices, we're pretty limited on what we can and can't do as far as approval of them.
Okay.
And the only condition we've ever put on them is the bonding requirement, and they've already included that in their packet. And that's the only condition we've put on in the past. I guess we've never put any other conditions on there. And
And bondings to the level of removal and reclamation?
correct, and that's the only, my understanding, based on the way statutes are written now, our hands are kind of tied on what we can require of them above and beyond what's in the state statute. And that bond removal is one of the only requirements, I guess,
All right, thank you.
for that amount. You know, that $20,000 is the amount. We can't go any different than that, or higher than that, I guess.
Okay. Good information for sure. So we have a few, okay. Have a few folks who would like to testify, and, oh yeah, the applicant, is it Tom? Or who would like to speak on behalf of the applicant? Yes, please. Yep. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Chad Morgan. I work for Raymaker and Associates. We're an engineering consulting firm that was hired by the Towers LLC. So I'd like to take a little different approach if possible, as I know there are some concerns from some of the adjacent landlords, and as we've already addressed, there are some state statute items that kind of address what their concerns are as well. In kind of a brief overview of what we're looking to achieve per the application, we're looking to lease a 100 by 100 area from the Bice family. That lease has already been implemented. And then from that 100 by 100 area, we are looking to utilize a 22-foot wide access utility easement. Again, I can kind of address that a little bit later, but the original easement was 30 feet wide. We did make it more narrow to address one of the concerns from the adjacent property owners due to an existing fence that's in place. So we made sure that that was not in the easement. Within that 100 by 100 easement or lease area, there would be a 75-foot by 75-foot compound, fully fenced in to house the tower and all necessary ground equipment for the carrier's equipment. There will be no guide wires outside of the compound, of the main compound. It is a freestanding tower. With that tower that we are looking to implement is a 225-foot self-support tower. So it is, again, a three-legged tower that's freestanding. Those are ultimately the scope of work of what the application is asking for. A little background of some of the due diligence that was completed. We did have a full archaeological study done on the property that did pass. There were no findings of archaeological concern in the area of the tower or the easement. We did do a geotechnical analysis to determine the soil types so that the proper foundation could be designed for the tower. The tower itself, being 225 feet, is only 120 feet from the nearest property line, so there is a fall zone letter included in the packet showing that the tower will fall within a 112-foot 6-inch fall zone area in the unlikely event that something were to happen. So it does fall within the property, the parent property. Some of the other work that was completed is we did do environmental analysis that passed as well. There were full regulatory FCC, FAA compliances put in place as well. That was all submitted as part of the packet, as part of the state statute requirement. So I believe, in terms of all of the due diligence that was done on the tower, everything has sufficed and is since been completed. So the zoning is ultimately the final step to move forward with construction.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Chad. Okay. Next, I know we have 3 people registered to speak. I guess, does anyone have a burning desire to go first? Excuse me. So, I have Gary Sell, Dale Fink, and Cody Fink registered to testify. Gary, would you like to go?
I'm a little bit concerned about this tower because if you look up there, that tower is 200 feet from my house, from my land. And I only got 2 acres of land there, and then everybody's got the acres around me. So I don't really understand why it's got to go there. I know Chad, he'll say, well, that's where they want it. Well, that's not where I want it. And this will be on the tower fence, on the outside of the tower fence. It says, radio frequencies field beyond this point may exceed FCC general public exposure limits. So at 200 feet, what's on the outside of that fence? Is that year after year I'm living there? Is that gonna bother me or my wife? I mean, remember, this thing is it's about half a football field from my house. So, and I just don't understand why it's gotta go there. And I know Tom, we've talked before, and he's got other areas he can put this thing. And apparently they don't wanna do that, but, and what about a generator? They're gonna have a generator on this site. That's gonna start up every so often on its own. They usually do. And I don't know how loud it's gonna be, but a generator running at 200 feet from my house, I'm sure I'll be able to hear it. And depending when that goes, and I just don't think it's should be that close to a residence. I don't know that they have any statutes on how close they can be, and I know they went through all the Indian mounds up there and everything is all good. But I just, if it falls, which they say it'll implode, but I've never seen them implode one, but it'll be 25 feet in my yard. I don't know where they come up with the measurements, but if you go up there and scale this out. And what about lightning and ice storms? You get up 225 feet with a 45, 50 mile an hour wind, ice comes off that thing, it's gonna fly. And lightning, sure, it's gonna hit the tower, but that's also pulling the lightning to that area, which I've got pine trees up there, and Tom thought that might cover the tower, but it's also gonna attract lightning. And if my pine trees start dying, I guess I won't have them to cover the tower, will I? So, and I don't think anybody here would want a tower 200 feet from their house. I just don't understand. But I guess Verizon isn't from here, they're from Florida. And Remker is from Sauk City, Wisconsin. They're not neighbors here. Tom is. Tom lives here. So he's gonna have to put up with this too. I don't know why they don't put it in Tom's place, because he's got a lot of land up the valley, 3 miles away. And he's gonna be 3 miles from this tower, so he don't care. And there is a tower 3 miles away already. And what about the road going up to this tower? Are they gonna take care of that? I know they don't do the one on Trober's Road. That's by Bortles. Teddy and Earl are always clearing out the culvert because it plugs up with the shale coming down the hill. And they haven't hardly once gone up there to fix that road. And I just think there's a better place for this thing than 200 feet from my house. I guess I don't know what else to say about it, but I'm not very happy with it. I've been a friend of Tom's, and I grew up with Barb. I guess that's kind of the way neighbors are, I guess. So I thank you.
Thank you, Gary, for your comments. Next, Dale Fink is the next on my sheets here.
Hello? Hear me okay?
Yep.
I'm Dale Fink. I'm a neighbor. Health concerns are my biggest issue here. I understand they might have met all the permitting, but nobody talks about health concern. From my research on health concerns, anything within 1,500 feet is not a good place to be. Medical problems rise about 40%. They used to put cell phone towers next to schools, hospitals, nursing homes. Now there's many states that ban them unless they're at least 1,500 feet apart. I'll try. Will this help? 1,500 feet seems to be the okay zone. I'm not opposed to the tower, but where its location is, I am because it's too close. We have a feedlot within that distance, a lot of rebar, a lot of concrete. Will it affect our bottom line with stray voltage? The radiation is given off from the microwaves or whatever, the tower. It's attracted to a grounding pad like that. I'm concerned about that. My farm, I'd like to pass on to my son and hopefully my grandson there someday. And if we're gonna make it a hazard where it's not gonna be, you're here to protect my health. And that's what I'm asking for you to do, is to reconsider this location. Tom does have 2 other sites they had looked at. One would be on the other side of the hill. And they talk about floodplain. There is in the middle of the field, but not along the bank. Which would put it a distance, safe distance from probably any house around of 1,500 feet. That's my thought of where it should go. Also, we were proposed a tower a couple years ago, and there was a neighbor concerned, but I was unaware of the health concerns. If he would have come to me with what I know now, I definitely would have relocated. Where that would have been, it didn't go up due to the board not approving, whatever. That's totally in the past, but health concerns do need to be addressed. And I said 40% increase is what they talk about if you live in that zone. And the property value will deflate a little bit from it. There is something, do you have that? Maybe Cody can speak on that. Verizon spoke to their stockholders. They're going to have problems with lawsuits and people living within the range of the towers. This was published not that long ago, but they never, to the people that live around it, the unit, they never notified them. They're just, their stockholders are notifying that they may lose value in their stock. Like I said, I'm not opposed to it. Just if they could move it to this other location, I think it'd be so much better and safer for everybody. That's my addressing the board here. As far as health, I called your county here. Nobody's ever talked about it. There is a lot of information out there. Maybe you can't make the decision today. Maybe you need to look into it more and see what I'm talking about. That's what I'm asking. Yes. Thank you for now.
All right. Thank you, Dale. Cody, you have anything you'd like to add? Cody Fink?
No, I'm just a neighbor and,
Step up, please, yeah.
just a neighbor and, it's pretty much summed everything up. But like, there's other sites that are on the land to put it. And Tom picked that spot to put it up there under Gary's and Kathy's and right next to our place. And, it should be looked at. There's other sites available on his property. Nobody's been opposed to it, but we just would like it moved to a different location, I guess. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Cody. Okay, is there anyone else that wishes to offer public comment regarding this at this time? I know you have,
Letter the town had.
yeah, I'd love to hear that.
This letter is written with reference to upcoming conditional use permit application by Raymaker and Associates to erect 225-foot cell tower on land owned by Thomas Bice, parcel 028-00504-000 in the town of Trempealeau. The board does not approve Raymaker and Associates conditional use permit application. Sincerely, Town of Trempealeau.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. Is anyone else here that wishes to speak, offer public comment about? Tom?
Yeah, it's okay.
Yep, please step up.
I didn't mean to comment, but there were several claims made that I thought I would clarify. First of all, this was the only acceptable, suitable spot for this tower on my property. I thought this would work fine. The view of this should be pretty much completely shielded by some large white pine trees on Gary's property. Will be visible to Dale Fink from his house, but he is quite a ways away from it. And I just, seems to me that I know that years ago, when people opposed these, I asked, do you people have a cell phone? And all the people that opposed it did have a cell phone. And so I kind of think it's not in my backyard type thing. This is far enough away. If you're interested, Chad will come back up and explain the hazards of living near a tower, which are, from what I could see, absolutely zero. And not only that, but I wish if they were going to approach this committee with information based on how dangerous they are, I wish they would have submitted that to the committee. So thank you very much.
Okay. If there's anyone else that wishes to offer public comment, we'll probably have questions, I'm going to assume, that we're probably going to have for you. If you want to offer something now, you can.
So just to kind of on the record, put some stuff, and again, this was submitted as part of the packet as well. As the beginning of the meeting kind of started out, there are state statutes in place, and there's also some other federally protected statutes in the state in place. One of the items that was brought up was the fall zone, and as mentioned, I did address that with the fall zone letter, that it will fall within 112 feet, so it will fall within the parent property, and that is covered under state statute 66.0404.2 subsection G. So that is covered, and all the documents have been put into place for that appropriate design. One of the other items was just the general location. We do run into this more often than not at zoning meetings, unfortunately, but as mentioned, everybody's got a cell phone, and unfortunately these towers have to go somewhere. But the location of the tower may not be the location of the tower is protected again by state statute 60404.4 subsection P, stating that the permit cannot be denied based on the location itself. And then there was concerns about the RF exposure. That is another question. The reason that sign is put on the fence is for people that go inside of the fence, not for the people outside. So if you're climbing the tower, there are exposure levels that if you're near the antennas, but outside of the compound, that there are no concerns there. So again, the RF exposure is protected under the FCC regulations, section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So that the equipment is within those ranges and is protected by that act. So I did want to just put that out there. It was included in the packet, but those were the main primary concerns of the adjacent property owner. So just wanted to kind of readdress those.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Chad. If nobody else wishes to offer public comment, I would entertain a motion for discussion.
Motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Klein. Do we have a second?
Second for debate.
Okay, second by Whalen. Discussion from the committee. questions?
Do we have more information as to why the town is not in support of this?
Mark?
I guess the way the town of Trempealeau works with their conditional use or any public hearing is they take upon themselves to kind of poll the neighboring, and then they vote accordingly. Like if there's 60% don't want it, then the town would not be in support of it. That's kind of how they run their, that aspect of things.
Any other questions, comments?
How much coverage is increased by adding this tower to the area?
I think that's probably gonna be a,
So as the map kind of shows here, there are multiple maps included in an RF affidavit provided by Verizon. There are certain areas that are basically it's an infill of coverage from some of the surrounding towers. So they're showing that in the Centerville area, there is a need. So you can see there that right where the arrow points to, there is minimal coverage. In the immediate area, the yellow, red, and then to the north. And then as you go down, once that tower is implemented, it expands out and kind of covers between everything in the green, again, yellow and red expands out farther. So if you look at the final map there, then it kind of shows the complete infill with that tower provided.
okay.
So, as he mentioned about the state statute, since location isn't a reason to deny the CUP, would there be other factors we're looking at here that would cause us to deny it? I guess more so a question for Susan too.
Is the legal requirement?
Yep.
And Mark, you can certainly fill in, and it looks like to me that our ordinance largely adopts 660401, and acknowledging that we would also be tied to it. There's a host of them, and I don't know if it's easier maybe to pull them up because there are quite a few. It goes to paragraph T in from A to T in our ordinance. So if we go to 409, and I believe it is, I want to make sure I'm following all my subsections here. But the limitations is what I'm looking at, Mark and Verge. I'm looking at subsection E, if I'm not missing one.
Are you looking at the things to consider?
Yeah, or limitations. It's on page 45. That might be the
Okay.
easiest. And there's a host. And then on top of this, because this is a conditional use permit, I think it's important to remember that any, and this is also by state statute, any denial of a CUP has to be done by substantial evidence. Substantial evidence is defined as facts and information other than merely personal preference or speculation directly pertaining to the requirements and conditions an applicant must meet to obtain a conditional use permit, and that reasonable persons would accept in support of a conclusion. So speculation is not enough. Looking at the legislative memo that was part of this, and staff here is probably well aware of the act that triggered the change to this provision in the statute because it came from Trempealeau County. And it was an All Energy Corporation versus Trempealeau County Environmental Land Use Committee from 2017. The related Act 67, what's important to note within this piece of legislation is that the bill requires an applicant for a conditional use permit to demonstrate with substantial evidence that an application and all requirements and conditions relating to the conditional use will be satisfied. The bill then requires a county, I'm skipping over a word or two there, to demonstrate that its decision to approve or deny the permit application is supported by substantial evidence. The bill specifies that public testimony alone is not substantial evidence and cannot be the sole basis for a decision to deny a conditional use permit. And again, that is a legislative memo dated November 29th of 2017 related to Act 67, and more specifically 59, 69, and I believe it's 5E on conditional use permits. So I don't know if that answers all of the question or maybe more.
Well, I think it feels like just like with solar or some of these other
Yes,
issues that
yes,
because of the state statutes,
We're limited to what we
yeah,
can do.
yes.
that local control is non-existent,
It's
yeah.
very, very limited.
Yeah.
Some counties choose to actually do these as permitting because the way that it is written, it is whether they supply all of the necessary information. If they do, then what you have to decide on is pretty narrow. And I don't know if Mark or Verge want to add anything else to it.
No, I don't think so. I mean, I guess, like, say the county did go the route of actually having a permit for a tower. That still doesn't give us the power to prevent anything.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
say we just
exactly
tried to say, okay, we're gonna sign like a building permit for it, and we'll deny it based on whatever reason we wanna come up with. We still gotta fall within the guidelines of where it is allowed and where it's not allowed,
Yeah.
I understand,
Yeah.
regardless of the conditional use part of it.
In other words, if the criteria is met,
Right.
it's permitted.
And I know it's frustrating for individuals that are affected by this. I guess they were talked to beforehand about our limits on what we can and can't do. I mean, it's good that people come in and, say their concerns and they're heard, but I guess in the whole scheme of things, I don't think there's a whole lot we can do with it. I mean, it can be denied, but then we would open ourselves up for being sued or something of that nature.
Well, the denial would have to be based on substantial
Right.
evidence with clear reasons and evidence.
So falling debris within a 200-foot limit, whether it be ice or a tower,
But we'd
Part-
have to have something more than speculation.
well, there, I assume he's got engineering on where the collapse zone is.
Yes.
But do they also have engineering on what may come off from the tower at certain weather events?
And certainly Mr. Morgan might be able to address that, but he has an engineering affidavit in there.
Yeah, we do not have anything in terms of, coming off the tower, we have the structural letter for the flaps.
So my question is, in the past, we've had towers denied.
We have not
Is that a
denied
true
any, to my
statement?
knowledge. I don't think we've denied
Trumpealeau
any.
County hasn't?
I don't believe so.
That I can.
And a lot of times when there's pushback or concerns, the cell tower company decides to move elsewhere. They don't want to go through the process. That's what's happened in some cases in the past. But I can't think of one that we actually denied. We actually, we tabled one, I believe it was because they wanted the DOT denied access to Highway 10. And they said, well, then access from this town road the other way. We don't care if your road needs to be 4 times longer, go the other way. That's kind of how, that's the only one that was ever drawn out more than one meeting, was because of the access.
But to substantiate it without knowing the information as far as ice drop and damage potential from this tower, would that be substantial enough to deny at this time?
No.
The way I understand it, no, because
Not
it's
having
not
the
substantial
information.
evidence to prove it one way or the other of a certain area that is the drop zone of the, that big tower down by Galesville, I think somebody had a big chunk go through the roof of their house down there someplace. But
And that's what I'm
that
saying,
tower
not
is
knowing.
huge, but-
Is that substantive?
So, but
That was old, that was an old tower too.
Something like that happens.
That's
who
what I'm
covers that?
saying.
I mean, our homeowners is gonna say, they should cover that. So, you know what I
Would be
mean?
correct. That would be correct.
Who covers some damage, a broken window from a piece of ice going through? It gets pretty windy out there.
So Mark, do you know the size of that tower? The one that you referenced?
no, not really. I think it's,
1,400 feet.
there you go. It's
So it's much higher.
it's been there as long as I've been in this county.
TV
it's been
13
there.
Tower 2 in Fairchild, when that collapsed, that was what, a lot bigger than that one even.
It might be 2,000. Yeah, go ahead, Verge.
I have a question. Who ultimately decides the location of the tower? And then also, I know we referenced the statute, but is there anything in the statute that has a setback from a residence?
We have setback requirements within the statute, but it's pretty narrow. I don't think you're gonna find the same, what you're looking for. Certainly the reference that was already discussed, if an applicant provides a political subdivision with an engineering certificate showing that a mobile service support structure is designed to collapse within a smaller area than the setback, or a fall zone required in a zoning ordinance, that zoning ordinance does not apply to a structure unless the political subdivision provides the applicant with substantial evidence that the engineering certification is flawed. So that was referenced already. I don't believe we have that. We cannot impose a setback or a fall zone requirement for a mobile service support structure that is different from a requirement that is imposed on other types of commercial structures. 4E talks about setback requirements, and this goes into a political subdivision may enact an ordinance, so we'd have to have something already in place. So,
Well, public comment's over. Yeah. Quickly. You have a minute.
Location of the tower, there was other sites, and it was brought out at the town meeting, who picked the site, and come down to Tom picking the site. He didn't want it in another spot. That's why I asked if he moves to the other spot, it'd be much better and safer for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Dale.
I guess that was gonna be my question too, if either Tom or Chad could give us more information about the other sites considered and what ruled those out and why this one was picked.
That on just kind of a high level.
You want to come to the podium?
So the question is, ultimately why the tower is where it is. And so just kind of on a high level, we've been working on this site for a year before reapproaching both the Finks and the Bice family. And so what had happened was there was interest from both parties for a tower on their property. As things kind of progressed, we determined that the property that we're on now is the best one to pursue. The reasons that the other areas of the property were not utilized were due to flood, and ultimately there is the river road that runs through Centerville as well. That is a historic road where they have a 300-foot setback off the road that we had to abide by as well as some additional residents, near there. So the reason that we ended up where we are now is it was ultimately the best location to stay out of the flood, stay out of the backyard of another residence that's in the center, the river road. And then up on top of the hill, it was just kind of where it seemed to be the best. It wasn't in front of a house, it was, behind a house, and that was the location that was determined. There were, there were our Indian burial grounds on the property further to the south, further to the west. So those were items that we had to stay away from as well. So the area that we're at now, up on the hill, was the best for the coverage that Verizon was looking for.
So you can stay 100 yards away from the Indians that are dead and 200 feet from me.
At that time, we did not have those maps, so we just.
Couldn't you move it towards the mountain more?
The location's been designed for, and there's been a lot of due diligence completed, so any movement would definitely is not as easy as it sounds.
But yet he stated, though, they moved from two sites because of resident location. And this is the act in question, is a resident location.
Can you go up the map?
Which map? The aerial map? You want to say aerial map? No, do you have a aerial? Or we might have to go to online mapping.
Is this in here?
3554 is here, 350-foot setback doesn't even get shaken. There is a, through the center here, it will flood. I see it happen, it's when the bridge is out, the bridge will come through. But this is 10, 15 feet higher on the edge of the hill. Be a lot safer. Jailhouse you have over here, house here, settlement over there, everything is more than 1,500 feet away. Location, I think, is a lot better. Location here, safer, healthier, for everybody. And that site was a chosen one that Tom wished not to use. It will not interfere with his rented field. If he puts it along the bank, they can cut their road in the bank, still have your field there. The $10,000 it's gonna bring in a year is more money on 100 by 100 than you're gonna make farming rent out. That's the location I think we should go in, safer for everybody.
There's also an issue with the power going to the tower. You guys figure out where that's coming from there?
That is still being worked on.
And I'm on the end of Riverland's line, so I'm pretty sure I know where they're gonna wanna bring it from. Because Riverland has first choice. And there's nothing I can do about that either, I just gotta put up with the mess in my yard, hope to go underground the whole way.
They were talking about bringing XL in south, then you're gonna be definitely at the end of Two Tails. That's not a good spot to be on.
So both our ordinance, and I'm looking at E1M as well as the statute 660404, subsection 4P. Their language is almost identical. What it essentially says is a political subdivision may not disapprove an application based on an assessment by the political subdivision of the suitability of other locations for conducting the activities. It has been expressly removed from this committee's authority, both by ordinance as well as by statute.
So we can't.
We can't deny, even if you can't deny, even if you think that there is another site that is acceptable, based upon the approved ordinance as well as state statute. So,
We can, yeah, he asked about health concerns, but health concerns we
we
can't.
don't, I wish we would have brought.
Yeah, we have no evidence.
When they ask about power, so I'm guessing that's not part of one of the requirements in the application? Like they can figure out the power issue afterwards? It doesn't have to be?
Maybe Mark or Verge.
Yeah, so when they mentioned that that's still in the works, it's not planned out yet.
I didn't hear that one.
Okay,
Okay.
The neighbors had mentioned that there's the issue of the power, that hasn't been
Right.
determined yet, so that's not part of the application.
I
It
don't,
has to be.
I don't think it is. I mean, they got a list of things that they got to include in the application, and I don't recall ever having that in the application process itself. The coverage maps, the fall zone stuff, all that is part of the application requirements. I don't recall ever seeing anything about, specifically about how power is going to be brought to the tower.
Okay. Any other comments, questions, discussion?
Just kind of a note here, but it does say the radio frequency exposure is based on Section 704 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. So we might be dealing with a pretty outdated science ordinance statute, but that's neither here nor there.
So just to make sure that we are compliant overall, I'm looking at 660404 subsection 2B5. And I'm looking at the application requirements. If the application is to construct a new mobile service support structure, a construction plan which describes the proposed mobile service support structure and the equipment and network components, including antennas, transmitters, receivers, base station, power supplies, cabling, and related equipment to be placed on or around the new mobile service support structure. Is that within the application? Because that is a statutory requirement.
They have a whole packet of stuff they send me, and it's, all that's in there, yeah. I mean, right now, what I included here was just location maps and some of the various info, but they do have a pretty substantial packet of information that includes a lot of the electrical component, tower structure itself, all that stuff.
Any other thoughts from the committee? I guess I'll share mine. The way I read and understand this, we don't have a leg to stand on to deny this, is what I'm reading or hearing. That being said, I'll offer my own personal comment. It would have been more respectful to the neighbors if you could have looked at a little bit different site and a little different perspective. I tend to actually agree with Dale that the other location would have worked probably just as well, but that's a personal issue, and you guys will have to live with that as neighbors, and that's the worst part of this whole deal, to me. So, quickly,
If you were to deny it and say come up with a new location, is that?
we can't. That literally the state says we can't.
It's a local issue, and what power do you have as a board as a local issue then?
Very good question, right? And this is not the only subject that's contentious about, but cell towers are in amongst the things that we don't have any say over.
Right.
Here, no construction's been done, yes, they did a little paperwork, but it could be changed.
I get it, Dale. I do.
Can't have this going on.
No, I know, it's time, I know, we're done.
Yeah.
I just want my own personal comment, and
I mean, if he wants to talk, he has to come to the microphone.
Yep, understood. So, we are past that. Any other comments, questions, concerns?
I guess the other thing I would say is, is it a possibility to consider that other location? I know so much goes into all this, everything that's been done, but for the sake of the neighbors, is that an option, or otherwise, like we've discussed, our hands are kind of tied to?
So this is a conditional use permit, correct? Correct. Yeah. So we can put a condition on that they could be, what? Liable for some insurance damage? Is that possible?
I'm not aware of if we can do that or not. I guess the only condition, like I said earlier, the only condition we ever put on any of these was the bond, and that was,
That's it.
and the other stuff, I mean, we can certainly look.
So to answer the question, going back to those limitations, and I would note that, just to clarify, these limitations that I'm reading from state statute were also at some point approved by the county board and incorporated into our ordinance. And it says within here, and I'm looking at 660404, subsection 4, subsection I, impose a surety requirement unless the requirement is competitively neutral, non-discriminatory, and commensurate with a historical record for surety requirements for other facilities and structures in the political subdivision which fall into disuse. There's a rebuttable presumption that a surety requirement of 20,000 or less complies with this paragraph.
That's just the bonding of the structure.
We don't have any additional requirements. It doesn't stop, any sort of civil case that might happen or civil claim. And that would be between the homeowners and the property owners.
So any other conditions that, I mean, if we haven't put anything else on for
No,
others,
and I would
that's-
also just reference to
kind
make
of a-
sure I'm identifying Mr. Munson's question. Subsection V also talks about
Yeah.
that further too. Not
So-
entirely, but
So for
some.
future, since our comprehensive plan is due for update in 27, 28, is there something that we could change that way, or statute says no?
The statute's gonna override. It's gonna preempt.
It's state.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, like Stacy said, reach out to your state legislators so we can prevent this from happening.
I just have a question, even if we added like a setback for residents that's just part of our ordinance, that future development of these towers would look at that and at least take that into
I think
consideration?
we could look at it a little bit more. I'm not sure whether we could do it.
Right.
But we'd
Not
have to do
saying
it as
that it
part of an
had
ordinance
teeth.
revision,
Right.
which is not,
But just as a purview
We can
for
have
somebody?
we
that-
could have a discussion and I
Got an ordinance that you have
Is our limit now 50 feet? Is that what it is?
think
Like for solar, I mean, it's 50 feet from a boundary line,
I
property
believe it
line?
is 50 feet, yeah, but I guess just to reference, like when we came up with them, or the committee came up with those solar recommendations, maybe something like that can be done with this, they're not requirements, but they're recommendations on what they could address in the future. I just went online this morning quick and the radiation thing after I talked to Dale yesterday, and it's put out by the American Cancer Society, but it's like 4 years old, the study that I looked at, and it said that they don't have a stance on it, and there's a certain ray that isn't, it's not cancerous, but I'm not a doctor or a scientist. I don't know you can look up anything you want and believe whatever you want to read, I guess, but I do understand their frustration, and I guess we are frustrated too at our level, because we're the ones that ultimately are left holding the bag that have to be the one that says, okay, you can do it,
And we certainly can look at it further because there's not much that the county can do without an ordinance. But I would also know that just like solar, there are limitations within the statute. And so within 660404 subsection 4E, there are some there too.
Okay.
This is a 5G, 4G?
Yeah, I would,
It's 5G, okay, you build it for that.
that's, if you're gonna talk, we need you to come up, otherwise,
You're building for a 5G now. Towers are changing fast. 6G, 7G is coming. Will they be more intense? Can they be
at
added
this
to?
point, it's all speculation and we
Well,
can't.
no, but can you add more to the tower, or is it going to be 5G only and can't come and make it more powerful? That's my question.
I don't know if that's something we can regulate.
It's speculative.
And then that's all speculation, so. Okay, at this
They do
point,
update equipment, they just take the old equipment down, put new on, it's just for the weight to the rate of the tower is what they go by. Because they did that for the sheriff's equipment update and Strong.
Yep. Yep. Okay, at this point, I think we're spinning our wheels. I will call the question. All in favor of approving this conditional use permit, signify by saying aye.
Guess we don't have a choice, do we? Aye.
All right.
Opposed? In favor?
Did everybody say aye?
Yeah,
Yes, regretfully.
everybody. I don't think
I
they were
did.
excited. You didn't?
No, I didn't.
Opposed?
Yes.
Okay, one opposed. 3-1. 4. Okay, well, motion carried, and, yeah, permit is granted. So, next item on our agenda, thank you all for attending. Sorry. So, okay, item number 9 is a zoning update, discussion, possible action. Mark, what do we got?
I guess first of all, I'd like to acknowledge Joel Nelson. This is probably gonna be his last hurrah meeting here, I guess, in this committee, and just acknowledge his diligence and his service, and he's a, great wealth of information that we've used for decades, and it's coming to an end.
And we're gonna miss the wealth of information. I don't think we ever talked to you and not learned something,
Right.
so.
Can I comment?
Yes, please.
I'd like to comment, Joe led the remonumentation for 15 years, did an excellent job. All of our government survey corners are remonumented and put in place, which saves the taxpayers money in the long run on surveys. And I've learned an immense amount sitting next to him since 2006, every Wednesday. And he was definitely going to be missed and was an asset to the county.
Well, yeah, thank you for your years of service, Joe. You will be missed.
Thank you.
I hope you.
I was wondering why I was down, but I kept looking at the agenda. Well, I don't know anything about that.
You didn't have your presentation ready?
No. I kind of felt like this little kid back here, actually. I appreciate the kind comments. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Verge. It's been a pleasure to work for Trempealeau County. I've worked in a lot of counties over the years, and this is the one I'll miss the most.
Well, we hope you enjoy retirement.
I will.
Don't shut the phone, don't shut the phone off. You might be needed someday.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Joe. Item number 10. Oh, wait, do we
Well, we
have
got a
anything
little bit
else?
more.
We
I
should
guess,
probably finish that. Not just thanking Joe.
Well, we could end it there, I guess, but, I guess Verge scanned a bunch of our large building plans, like 320 of them, just to get them out of the boxes and stuff in the computer. Now they're all in the computer, I should say. And so, thank Verge for doing that. That was a major undertaking. As always, we're working with Corp Counsel on citations. We got court stuff coming up, and it's a never-ending battle with that, I mean, they're looking at a county fee schedule type thing. Maybe we can increase the fines for some of these things to kind of jack these people up more than we're already able to do it. And some of them, I don't think any incentive would work, but I guess if someone was threatening me with $1,000 or more fine, I would straighten myself out a little bit. But.
Sure.
And then I guess the last thing is the stuff that was included with the fee schedule. To propose changes based on, a lot of it was based on we just signed a new contract with GEC, and they're increasing their fees after 3 years, and we're just increasing ours accordingly, based on the 10% that we get from, for our coverage of it. And then some of the other ones were just increasing, like the sanitary ones went up like $5 just to kind of make it a manageable number of $475. And also with the well, make that the same as, like, say, the sign permit, instead of having 160, 130, one this, one that, make it more uniform. That's pretty much what the fee schedule changes are proposing. I'd say 90% of it has to do with the building inspection increases based on our new contract with GEC.
Okay. Any
I had
questions?
one question. What's the difference between erosion plan A and plan B?
Good question. I mean, we only deal with A for the most part, like the minor erosion control, once, like the 1 and 2 family dwelling would fall under the A. When they start getting into the bigger ones, like I would assume the B or C would be, they're getting covered with the DNR, with their WPDS permitting over an acre and all that kind of stuff. I mean, we've never, to my knowledge, I think we've only used the second one maybe once or twice, and it was on like a big school, like when Blair Taylor built their school, it was that one. Other than that, it's strictly the bare minimum erosion control for 1 and 2 family dwellings. And that's kind of what most of our stuff falls under, is the 1 and 2 family dwellings. It was put in there on the onset for some reason or another, and I guess we never took it out, so.
Okay, any thoughts on the proposed increase in fees? More questions? Seems pretty logical, covering our costs and staff time.
Yeah, we don't want to increase fees substantially, but we got to, especially with GEC's increases, we got to increase them just to kind of cover our.
Right.
And then I did compare with other counties, you know, we're kind of in the middle, you know, there's some counties that are way higher and then some that are way lower, you know, we're kind of, as far as the sanitary kind of stuff like in the public hearing stuff goes, we're kind of in the mid-range, you know. Some of them are outrageous, like $2,000 for a public hearing. I think it's more of a deterrent to discourage people from actually trying to do it. But I mean, that's kind of what I've noticed.
Yep.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Did we ask anything about commercial inspection? I know Andy was asking about that.
I guess I haven't pursued it any further than what the last discussion was at our last meeting where we were kind of trying to stay out of it and just stick with the 1 and 2 family dwelling, you know. It's certainly always a possibility, and I'm sure GEC would be more than willing to. But, you know, some of the cities or villages, you know, they could go through them for that purpose, you know, instead of having the county. I think 1 and 2 family dwellings is enough on our plate to worry about, you know, as far as that stuff goes.
Okay. Any other thoughts, concerns on the proposed rate increases for fees? If not, I need
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Munson,
Second.
second by Whalen. Any other discussion?
Quick question, this might be a silly question. For a conditional use permit, is there a timeline on that, or is that, could be dependent on the conditions we place on there?
That's a good, Mark, question.
The actual permit itself is one fee, and then the public hearing is a separate fee, and they're just added together. I guess I didn't hear it that great, but I guess what was,
So then the CUP, is there a timeline for how long that's good for?
oh, okay, yeah.
How does that work?
I mean, there's a timeline on if they gotta have activity, like say they get approved for a conditional use permit, and that doesn't mean they can build the tower 5 years from now. They gotta do it within a year. You know, they gotta start something within a year, I believe, and then within 2 years, it has to be substantially completed or something of that nature. Where otherwise, they do stay, you know, with the property, but, you know, they don't expire unless they just never happen, I guess, you know, it doesn't carry over, it's not an indefinite thing if they just don't do anything, so they'd have to do it all over again.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. All in favor of approving the new fee schedule, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, done there. Anything else to report, Mark?
Well, I think that's very, I mean, I got a memo from the DNR. We gotta rewrite our shoreland zoning ordinance, which shouldn't be too bad. I mean, this is kind of tweaking a few things with their new model ordinance that they have, so probably doing that over the winter months and have something in the spring. I don't really see a time frame on when it has to be done, but there's no point in kicking it down the road too many times, but I've done it once before, and just like the DNR, you know, we're talking about all these state statutes with this cell tower stuff, you know, we're required to have our shoreland zoning and floodplain ordering because of the DNR. But we're the ones that have to enforce it and write it and I guess all that kind of stuff. But, so that's kind of in the works too. And kind of nice to see the ground frozen now and maybe stuff will slow down a little bit. We were actually out, someone actually put a sewer in yesterday and there was like this much frost in the ground. So it was pretty chunky already, you know, but hopefully it'll slow a few things down that way. But,
I would think so. Okay, well, thank you, Mark. Item 10 is a request for county cost share money to partially fund a snowmobile project. And that comes from Parks and Rec Coordinator Jack. Hey. And Jack will explain to us.
Yeah, I wish I was meeting some of you guys in better condition, but stuff happens and we're trying to get through it.
Oh, yeah, I'll take one too. Thank you.
Yeah. So, we had a little incident on the snowmobile trail, and we're trying to designate some funding elsewhere, and trying to see what the appropriate way to go about this is. So basically, what had happened is we had a culvert project that was constructed in two parts prior to me starting. So basically, to add some context, we had a Parks and Conservation Specialist previously. That was the county coordinator, and then that transitioned to me being the county coordinator. And he had applied for a culvert, pretty much a two-part project for our snowmobile grant. And the only part that was funded was the culvert repair. So basically, I had gotten a letter early 2024, and for a little over $4,000, and I had not been basically. People were I had it in my head that it was a replacement, and this whole project, the whole 24,060 was all encompassing. So basically, all that was funded for in the grant, unfortunately, was that part two of the culvert, just the repair, not the replacement. So basically, I had talked to multiple people about this, the Eric Johnson property owner, people internally, and I should have connected the dot of not getting that letter of the 19,000, and I didn't. So basically, I got a letter in early 2024 just for that 4,130 for the culvert repair instead of both. So we had Post D excavation did perform the culvert replacement and did move the existing culvert upstream, which you can see in the pictures. So this is an area that typically had washed out in the past. So the GET Club was very happy with the project. And I know there is some stipulations when it comes to conservation projects. So we're trying to figure out what's the proper course of action here. So I can read the proposal part. I am seeking funding to be transferred to the parks account from the county conservation cost share account. We'll be using the money that is left in the parks reserve account to match our Knowles Nelson project for our 2025 grant writing. We did transition from a rec pond project to now more of a natural play area for the Peachtree Park. After seeing the concept design, I think we're in a much better direction with what we can do at the park. So this grant writing will be taking kind of place, and we'll be matching that grant funding with our park reserve fund. So if the money in this account lessens because of a snowmobile project, this will negatively affect the amount we can match for the Peachtree Park Enhancement Project and make other needed park repairs. And then financial justification for fund request. Funds are being requested from the county cost share program in 2023, $14,536.80 was transferred from the Farmland Preservation Fund. Currently, the cost share funds remain uncommitted for 24. As a result, a total of $35,241.37 will be transferred in 2025 with an additional $70,000 allocated for that year. With this project possibly affecting the GET Trailblazers Club and a major problem on the snowmobile trail because of yearly washout, I humbly request that the county conservation cost share account be used as a more appropriate method of funding given the position of our current parks budget. And then this is off of Highway 53 on Paradise Lane in the town of Gale. and corridor 29 of the snowmobile trail. And I can field any questions.
Questions from the committee?
Does the county conservation cost share account have that money available?
I currently have the 35, 241, 37 because we did have a couple projects back out. It was almost all allocated for this year. I had probably about 5,000 left over, and then I had a couple projects back out. This year we are allocating and spending $139,000 and $78.69 from county cost share, along with $98,000 from bond funds. So in total, we're spending well over $200,000. So that $30,000, yes, I have it for this year. It'll transfer into next year. I do have a good handful of people calling about grade stabes, which are $40,000 roughly right now.
Right.
And that means our 70% rate is about $29,000 per project. So projects do add up as far as what is out there. So it is there. I did not know about this, I'll say, until after the fact. So this was all put in without me, even made aware of it. And it was after the fact that I was made aware that this project or this snowmobile crossing was put in. It is a crossing for mostly snowmobile. There are cattle in that area. They are not restricted from the crossing. And the area is mapped wetland and floodplain. So if I was doing a conservation project, I probably wouldn't have been able to put it in because I would need DNR permitting. And right now, doing floodplain permitting is extremely hard. I have one now that has been sitting since July, waiting on a full H&H study. So.
What I can say about the floodplain stuff, I did talk to the waterways permitting specialist, was previously employed with Trempealeau County and does serve our area for the DNR. And I did get a verbal agreement from him that it's exempt. The culvert project is exempt for this type of thing on a snowmobile trip.
I have a few questions. If it only was bid out for repair, how did it get to be replaced?
That
Without approval.
After talking to the property owner, internal people that had this project before me with the transition from Reed to me, I had it in my head that it was a replacement from the start, and which was totally my bad. I should have seen that first award letter of just the 4,130 and just saw, well, that matches up with that number. And I've seen replacement in a few emails, and for some reason I was just kind of geared
State
towards that.
statute and our resolution state that county cost share funds are only stipulated for certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Payment is dispersed upon completion and payment, where this hasn't evidently been paid for. And if it's snowmobile, that comes out of economic development, because that's tourism.
Randy?
Well, since we're looking at that kind of money, I wonder why there was no look at rerouting. It seems like a lot of money to replace a culvert. And, I know trails can be rerouted all over the place. Why was that so specific that it took that that amount of money?
Right, and that's probably why the state ended up going with the 4,100. And yeah, I mean, it falls on us, so I'm coming here and I'm fine with however the committee makes the decision. But I understand that there's certain stipulations.
that was all previous to Jack coming in, so we don't know the answers to that. I think the county cost share funds, the funds that Jack has identified are they were a set of funds that were left over, that were put into the county cost share funding. before I came here, before Jack was here. And so they were out of the land preservation funds, as he stated. And they were extra funds that were left over that were put, and that's through the finance, people that are looking at this. And that's where he's asking, could those funds be identified for this? Because they were not really cost county shared funds to begin with.
And with a big park project coming up that we all kind of know about, and, I'm not saying that conservation projects don't matter more, but with our county, trying to put something into our park and make a difference there, an accessible natural play area, it's going to be a great thing for our county. So taking out of the park reserve fund for something on the snowmobile trail, that's where I feel like we can explore a little bit.
Has the snowmobile club agreed to go 50-50 or a percentage on this to cover or no?
We could ask them about that, but I don't think they have that type of funding. Definitely not 24,000 for the G2 trail.
But you should
closures.
identify, they had excess funds 2 years ago.
We're talking about the maintenance funding,
Right.
not
GT. But using some of those maintenance funds from that previous, and also maintenance funds, a portion of that from this year to account for how much, was it
ended
over
up being,
3,000?
Yeah, 2,000 or 3,000 between the 2 years, identifying those maintenance funds that didn't get used. Then we got an additional 3 miles added this year, so we'll have about 77,000 in maintenance funding for the snowmobile trail this year. 259 miles.
I understand what Rebecca was saying about, it preceded you, but it still blows my mind that to spend that kind of money on a snowmobile trail when there's land everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But
For 60 days, possibly.
yeah,
If you're lucky.
Yeah, 'cause last year was 1 day.
And to that end, have we talked to the landowner who probably benefits the most to see if they're willing to be of any assistance on this?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, have you talked? Was it
Yeah.
Eric Johnson?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is there any interest?
Now that
I mean,
the project is
The
done.
project is done.
I know.
I think that it's gonna be a really tough one.
Yeah.
It's tough no matter how you get it from.
Park funds separate from economic development?
We're beginning to transition that way.
Well, economic development, snowmobiling is tourism, that brings in the revenue, so that's where it should come from. That way it wouldn't affect your park fund.
Yeah.
That's what,
I'm a little concerned about taking it away from projects out there myself.
exactly.
What was the reason for it not coming from economic development?
I was told it would be taken from the park reserve fund, and we never identified it being an economic development thing. If this were not to pass, then it would get taken from park reserve.
So where'd you come from then?
I did ask if a department goes over budget on something, what is the process? Just because I was curious. And that would be going to your respected committee. Then that would go to like a resolution saying I need to pull from the general fund. Then that would go to your respected committee, then go to exec finance, and then the county board, as far as being allocated additional funding from that general fund. So just for my own purposes, that's the reason I asked, because I was curious on that process, so.
Okay. Any other questions?
I make a motion to not approve.
Okay. The motion to decline the request. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Well, with that, is it still, I mean, is it kind of done? Is it still an option to maybe look if it could come out of general fund or?
Yeah, we'll take it. I think that's a valid point in taking it and looking at the economic development, so we can,
See if we can find it.
sure.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Discussion or questions? Hearing none. All in favor of not approving this request, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Thank you for your
carried.
time.
Yeah, thank you, Jack. Item number 11, I think this is Haley for Land and Water.
Even number 11 is. Like
Board-
board elections.
Conservation
Okay.
Getting to be a long meeting already.
Okay. Hopefully we can quickly go through this. I hope that each of you looked at the 5 candidates that were submitted by the area associations for the Land and Water Conservation Board. So, quick background, this board helps allocate funds from DATCAP for the bond, the SAG, and our staffing grants to all the different counties. They also listen and either approve or deny our land and water plan. So our plan is due in 2026. So this is the board that will be approving or denying our plan come 2026. So that'll be coming as well to you guys in the future. And so there is, oh my goodness, I think there's at least 8 members on this board, and 3 of them are elected by the counties and the LLCs, so the conservation committees. The remainder are appointed by the governor or through state agencies like DNR and DATCAP. So it is our role here to decide on the 3 that we will be submitting in our ballot. So each county gets 1 ballot to submit for the 3 people. So there's 5 that we can choose from, 3 that move forward. I talked with staff. We have kind of a ranking that we think would be beneficial or that we like as far as the staff members. I would like to say the current members are the Rebecca Cook, the Yoish, I can't pronounce his last name.
Chala.
I'm sorry, Chala. Yeah. And then Monty Osterman. And those 3 are currently on the board, and they have held those positions for the last 2 years. I believe this was Rebecca's first term, so they're a 2-year term. The other 2 have been on for multiple years. I don't remember off the top of my head. So I can give you our recommendations. Otherwise, if you guys want to chat, if you guys are thinking of certain people, I would love to hear them so that we can move forward, because I have to submit this ballot by next Friday. So we do need a vote on those 3 that we are moving forward.
I appreciate the staff's input. I find that way
Yeah.
more
And I'm concerned because
valuable.
none of the candidates are from God's country. And we have a little different terrain, we have a little different landform than any of these people that are in Racine County, Dane County, Sheboygan County.
Correct.
There's a couple ag people on there, so that's.
There's
what I
ag
kinda-
people, but
There's
my,
ag people on
my
there.
concern is how much altitude they're used to
Well, I
having on
know.
their ground.
Yeah, mud puddles don't move there.
Yeah, exactly, they go into the lake.
Yes.
We want into the river.
Yep.
Very valid points. So with discussing with the staff, we came up with Monty was our number 1 because he is a very big advocate for conservation. And he's on a lot of boards and he's very active. So that was the one that we all agreed on. The next was either Rebecca or the Yoish, because they are both very strong candidates. I think it's interesting that Rebecca this is going to be her second term, so I feel like the first was probably going to be more kind of learning. She
curve.
even said that she learned so much being on this board. So I think she would be a great second. And then in discussing, it would be thinking about kind of a whole well-rounded board. The question then leads to, do we go with someone outside of that southeast area. So Terry White is out of Douglas, so he's in the extreme northern part of the state. But Mike Hofberger, he also grew up on a dairy farm. So those were kind of our two that we were like, okay, we like all the candidates. I don't want to get that misconstrued, is that I think all of them will do great on this board. I would put, Mike grew up on a dairy farm, has had that experience more on that agricultural side, and we are a more rural county with more agriculture. That may be a highlight on our end. So I would say from our aspect is the staff, we were mixed reviews on the third one. I would say it was Monty, Rebecca, and then that third was either it was a really close between the three. But I would really be interested in what you guys are thinking, so that we can hopefully make a decision.
Like with Mr. Whalen, everybody's down south with.
Correct.
One was in
And-
Douglas County. I had Terry White, I had Mike Hofberger, and Monty Ostrom too.
Yep.
Those are my three choices.
Okay. So one thing, so these are 2-year terms. It is the area associations that select and designate these. So next, in 2 years, our area association or West Central, or I think there's like 8 area associations within our district, they can submit a candidate they believe would be good for it. Right now, I think Western, which is what we are in, we didn't have, our area association went through a very big change, and we weren't very strong or active prior. So we are hoping now coming forward that with some new board members on that area association that we start to be more active, and maybe we can actually submit a candidate for this next round to have someone in the Driftless area. So just as a thought on your comment about there's no one from this region.
And that's huge in my mind as far as pollution and the rest.
What counties are in our district then?
Our counties, or our district, is going to be Trempealeau, Jackson, Vernon, Monroe, Crawford, and La Crosse.
Hopefully Monroe would recommend, so they're pretty active, aren't they?
Correct, yes. So that is our area association.
That's separate from Wisconsin Land and Water that you were talking about, the two different.
Yeah, so it's the land and water, and then they're broken into the area associations. So there's a lot of overlap in a lot of these. Yes. So, any other
Questions, thoughts from the committee?
thoughts?
Make a motion to go with the first three choices of the committee.
Staff, or?
The staff, so
Okay.
you want me to,
And you were certain on
We
your
got one,
third?
2. We don't, 3?
it is Mike Hofberger, or who you want as your three, or who are you really recommending?
I think Mike would be a great one, especially bringing him on from, an agricultural standpoint. A lot of them are urban standpoints, which I think is great on a lot of other counties, but bringing in someone that may have some other thoughts may be helpful.
So I guess the motion would be to accept Monty Ostrom, Rebecca Cook, and Mike Hofberger as our three candidates.
Clarify, it's Rebecca Clark.
Yeah.
Clark, oh, sorry.
You guys
that
are
was my
getting
bad.
used to your TV commercials. I'd second that motion.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Oh, do we need to approve it? It doesn't really matter.
No, because I'll do the
'Cause
thing.
You're gonna do the ballot.
I'll do
based
the
off
ballot,
this
and then it'll be
It is
decided
what
on the
it is,
ballot,
because
so I
they're
don't
gonna
know.
do whatever.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I just wanna,
I think
so
that's consensus, though.
Monty, Mike, and Rebecca.
Okay.
Perfect. I will get those submitted, and forward those on I'm assuming they'll send out an email once they receive all the ballots and what the final vote is. And I'll make sure to pass that along once I hear more.
Good.
So, perfect. Done with that one.
Okay, anything else? Wait, that's the Board of Election, now debt cap bond extension request, so that's you.
That's me again. Okay, so we have 3 projects this year with our bond funding that we have signed contracts for, and they were later signatures. We anticipated that they would be done in 2025. We can extend those funds for 1 year. So the reason that these were a little later is they either contacted us later, or we partnered with NRCS later in the year, and projects weren't going to be installed in the snow or frozen ground or anything. So we have to have very specific timelines that we have to meet. So we would like to extend these three, which is going to be a total of $22,232 into 2025, and that would be used for those projects in 2025. As far as the reason I'm bringing it here today is that per DATCAP, I need to have the approval of my committee to extend those funds before I type my name electronically and send it on. So I'm looking to see if you guys are okay and approve of that extension.
Any questions on the extension from the committee? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
First by Klein,
Second.
second by Whalen. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We will extend that to next year.
Perfect.
Next item is your conservation update.
Yeah, let me get my things figured out here. Okay, so as far as the conservation update, I'm gonna keep it short since we are a long meeting today. So we held a meeting last night with the Friends of Trempealeau Lakes, in conjunction with the Friends of Trempealeau Lakes down at El Morro, and Tony and Randy were there as well. Overall, I think it was a very interesting meeting. It was talking about potential of a nitrogen optimization pilot program and how the nitrogen rates are, not rates. The nitrogen in the groundwater is high in the Trempealeau Terrace, which leads to the Trempealeau Lakes. So we brought in some of the extension staff along with Kevin Marceric from UW Stevens Point in conjunction with UW Extension. He has multiple roles in that aspect. And we had a good handful of producers from the Trempealeau Terrace area that attended. And I think we're open to maybe doing one of these nitrogen optimization pilot programs. It is a grant through DACAP and UW Extension to do like a research project on nitrogen on your farm. So if a farmer or producer has a question about nitrogen rates or how nitrogen is moving, they can come up with a question, come up with like a research project in conjunction with the, like a university staff member or potentially like our staff, and just doing a research project for 2 years to see what the different rates mean. Can they find like a break-even point essentially of where your expense meets the highest yield? So it was an interesting meeting on my part too. I learned a lot as well. So I think that was really good. We'll see where it goes. There was no commitment made. It was more of just a listening session and just hearing everything that's potentially out there. And Friends of Trempealeau Lakes were involved because they are hoping somebody or a producer does a project down there so that maybe we can learn on, well, maybe we don't need to apply as much nitrogen to get the same yield. And then that'll in turn probably lower the rates of nitrogen in groundwater, in turn lower the rates in the Trempealeau Lakes over time. It will not be an overnight thing. So overall, it was really well received. Another aspect is the nutrient management classes at Western Tech will be starting in January. So signups went out. We sent out information probably about a couple weeks ago about that sign up, and we're hoping to have another great attendance. So that would be part of our nutrient management farmer education grant that we can reimburse producers from attending those classes at Western Tech, which gives them their nutrient management plan that they have to turn into us. On a note of nutrient management, frozen ground, we all know that that's here, I think, to stay now. And that means the spreading restrictions as far as like the slopes and distances from waterways and everything. So just wanted to make that quick announcement there. Gearing more towards youth education. One last plug here, youth education for the poster and speaking contest. Deadline is December 18th. So if you have kids, grandkids, anyone wanting to participate for the poster, it's K through 12. And I love seeing every single one from K through 12 because they're very interesting. I do have a handful of posters already, so I'm really excited to get those. I'm trying to see if I can get them hung up somewhere so that everybody in the courthouse can see them and maybe see, leave them up for committees to look at as well. Speaking contest, that'll be on the deadline to submit the registration is the 18th of December, held on January 8th. So, mining renewal letters went out, so we sent out, I think, close to 60 of those. So those will be coming in for renewals for each year, verifying their acreage open and doing their reclamation on that part of it. And I just wanted to make a note on that. I should have spoke of it earlier, but with the youth education, so Land and Water has a committee for the youth education committee, and I was elected chair to that committee. And I am involved in the silent auction and the committee prior. The chair stepped down after I think it was 12 or 15 years. She just needed a change. She's still very involved in it, and we restructured the committee a little bit so that the chair wasn't doing everything. So the previous one got a little burnt out, so now we're actually doing subcommittees and sub-chairs so that poster and speaking, Envirothon, all the youth education events are actually headed up by these chairs or these co-chairs, and then I just pretty much run the big meeting 3 times a year. So it'll help out, and I'm there to help whenever needed. So it's like, I'm excited about it, and just keep the youth education strong throughout the state, because those are the kids that are hopefully going to be coming up behind me and everyone else. So keeping conservation going. So that's what I have for a conservation update. If you guys have
Very good.
questions, let me know.
Tree and shrub update, sales good?
Tree and shrub, yes. We're sold out of a lot of them. It is going really well. We still have some trees available. Not many pines. If you're looking for like white pines, those were sold out probably within a week and a half because it's just a strong one, and we couldn't get as many from the original nursery this year. So we are limited on the number of trees we have. So, but if you're looking for more native shrubs, we do have some of those available as well. So, yeah.
Good. All right. Thank you, Haley.
Yeah.
Future, item 14, future agenda items, anything anyone wants to bring forward? You want to talk about our cell phone ordinance?
Or setbacks.
Yeah. We can, that'd be a discussion to have.
Well, between that and now the solar, I mean, after reading through some things I see back, Mark, 10 years ago, we had property values on, it was mining back then.
Right.
Whatever. Now, whether there was some comment made back then on solar, which solar was not, nobody had any understanding of that in any county, but whether there's anything to.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked to some realtors that think your property values go up with a cell tower next door. It depends on how you look at it, but.
Beauty's in the eye of the beholder.
Isn't there studies that show that like internet access, if you don't have it, it reduces your
Right, that's kind of what
your
I.
value
that's
of
what I meant.
property,
It's kinda-
right?
But it's all in the eye of the beholder where they're sitting too, I guess.
So we got to get that word to assessors because we don't have internet access in North Creek, so we got to talk to them.
But I don't think a very good source of information about that would be from a realtor since.
No, I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I don't believe it.
Well,
I
it was,
mean, I'm
back
just-
in the day, 10 years,
yeah.
it was from actually a lender. They were concerned that the property value would
Yeah,
go
yeah,
down
for,
versus what they had as
for a
mortgage,
realtor to
and
say that it
Is that sand
increases
mine?
property
That was
values.
particular to sand mines?
particular to
Yeah.
sand mines, and it was brought up now back then on potential solar development, because there was some on, 50 or to 70 acre smaller scale or behind,
Right.
on yard. But that was more
I'm just gonna comment, in the mining, the county decided to stay out of it because it was between the miner and the landowner.
Right.
Wanted to stay out of it because of the
Right, but whether we could make that as a condition or whatever, that those two negotiate to protect the value?
And actually, ironically, I think.
They did on the way out the door.
Tom Bice went out the door, and I think it was a condition that they negotiate, and Tom Bice walked out and was helping them to negotiate.
Well, that's
I mean,
good.
out in the hall.
Out there, because I did see
Or
them, I saw
making
them
sure they
talking.
were, yeah, so I mean, that you could probably do. That, make it a condition that they.
Correct.
Work on something,
Yep.
but not that we would get involved.
No,
Right,
no, but I
we're
mean,
not
yeah,
a
just,
mediator or arbitrator or anything like that.
yeah, we're not none of that, but I mean, just make it a condition that there's,
Right.
Well, and a comment I was gonna make too is, that's what your county's association is for. Wisconsin Counties Association is for. That you guys can bring things forward to them, correct?
correct.
And if there's a setback issue in a statute,
And there's
can't you
conversations,
take it to
yeah.
them to?
Well, that's
to
what the
pursue?
towns do, yeah, they lobby or whatever, I assume the
Yeah.
counties would have the
Yeah.
same lobbying power or
So,
more.
like, the steering committee, agriculture and land use.
No, you're good.
Part of the resolutions that we set up to the, to the WCA to be sent to the state, talk about how, there weren't any details on what the local control would look like, but talking about local control. So solar was the biggest issue, then you've got wind and, get into the cell phone towers too. But yeah, I'm curious to see for the county ambassador program, like the first one will be in January here, what initiatives they'll have, because I think that local control issue comes up more and more.
'Cause there is bills on the books or whatever, they're not discussed yet, on solar setbacks and how much land, ag land could be a part of to protect some ag land and some other stuff. But I mean, yeah.
Okay. Good idea.
Yeah, I think, if they're gonna come up more often,
You wanna plug me too?
with setbacks, as issues.
Just me.
We really.
It'd be something you'd have to petition through,
Yeah.
like I said, the Wisconsin counties, cause they have more
Thank you.
lobbying power to change the statute. I'm just gonna comment on, I'm assuming we're moving on to the next meeting date.
We are.
The January 1st was the first Wednesday.
Yeah, and
So
we're
we
not
took the
open.
liberty of just putting January 8th on here, but if you wanted to move it to Thursday or something else, but
Sure.
January 8th,
Yeah, we won't be here the first. I can confirm that.
I won't be here.
So as far as that goes, the second could be an option. too,
The second
yeah, for
Wednesday,
sure. It's
so
up
the
to committee. I don't have preference.
Sounds good to me, it's already,
Want to go second?
oh, the second.
Or do you want to go the 8th? I'm good either way.
I'm good either way for right now,
So usually law enforcement is
Second?
8 o'clock on the second Wednesday.
So we better not, so we probably ought to not take that one then, maybe.
We should go Thursday the second. Yeah, they got more
Yeah.
firepower than we got, I think.
Yeah.
I'm on both committees, so it doesn't matter to me.
I'd say, well, with that and, yeah. With that information, let's look at the second, I think. we'll-
Thursday, January 2nd?
Yeah, unless somebody has major objection to that.
Okay.
Okay, we will plan on that. Yes. We'd all been here on the first.
I'll bet, yeah.
I wouldn't have been.
Not Mark. Yeah, no, that should take care of it, so.
You wanna shoot for 32, Mark?
Thursday, January 2nd, okay.
We'll go and
Thursday, January
celebrate the night
2nd.
before and we'll come here on the first.
Yeah.
Even though I haven't celebrated the New Year in probably 30 years,
We're just
but,
talking about how people act on TV.
yeah.
Okay, so are we
Well, I
adjourned?
forgot about that.
We are adjourned. We will see everybody, Thursday the 2nd. Everybody have a happy new year and Merry Christmas and all that, so, thank you.